How do we learn? What's a difficult question? Science hasn't got the answer yet. They are working towards it, but it's a difficult question to answer. They all agree, scientists agree, that we learn when we connect new knowledge to our previous knowledge. They also agree that we learn by doing things. But this is not enough. We learn from action, right? But we also have to reflect on the action. We also have to reflect on why what we are doing is correct or right, and how we can improve, etc. They also agree that learning is much more efficient when we have an objective, when we have a purpose for doing it. Of course, we all know that when you need to use a tool is when you actually need learn how to use that tool. When we have a purpose, we are also more motivated. But motivation is not enough. Apart from motivation, we have to be engaged. We have to be involved in what we are doing. Finally, they all agree also that we learn in a more efficient way when we learn from models, from examples, from stories. We all like listening to stories. Abstract facts are much more difficult to remember. So, if we believe of what science tells us, then we have to change the way our classrooms look like. Our classrooms have to become workshops. Workshops where students learn together, share their knowledge, they all have the same aim, the same purpose, and they are doing everything in order to solve a problem, build a product, whatever, do a task, which is something useful for them at that moment. But what about learning English? ESL research tells us that there are 4 essential conditions for language learning. We have already talked about motivation. There is also memorization. It is true that we have to memorize collocations, idioms, etc. That's essential. But there are also 2 things that we can also develop in our classes, and in fact, they are related to the competencies as we are talking about skills. We need to produce output, so we need to use the language when we speak and write. Speaking and writing are essential, and also exposure to input, so reading and listening. Of course, in this case, we need comprehensible input, so input that is a little bit above our current level, and this input has to be as authentic as possible or resemble real text. And of course, it has to be interesting, and the students have to pay attention to it. The attention has to be focused on that text, and they have to be asked to do something with it, especially if it is something that resembles real life. What about grammar and vocabulary instruction? Well, those are not essential. We have learned how to speak our mother tongue without paying attention to grammar. But it is true that with foreign languages, instruction hastens the process. So we also need to pay attention to that because it's going to make things quicker. So what we are talking about is task-based learning, where the task is the step that allows us to be competent users, as we are learning language by using the language in real or realistic communicative contexts. A task is an activity where the learner uses the language for a real purpose. It has to resemble a real world. And of course, as you can see, this is learner-centered. We have plenty examples of tasks. You can see some of them here. And we have to try to make these tasks the main objective of the English lessons. We have to try to change from a traditional approach to English teaching to a more competency-based approach, which, of course, one is task-based approach, where the communication, the message is the essential aim of our English classes.